I'm not going to win the YouTube game. That's not why I'm there. I'm not on YouTube to be a YouTube celebrity. I'm on YouTube because that's the only place I can put my content that houses long-form video, there to compete with the people who are successful on YouTube as like quote-unquote content creators in that way.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. It's so much fun when Alison Roman drops by the studio. We recently had her in to talk about her excellent newsletter writing, you really should be subscribing, and her newly relaunched YouTube show, Home Movies. We also talk about where she's been dining out in New York City, her life upstate in rural New York, and really all the things you wanted to ask Alison about her life in and out of the kitchen. It's really fun catching up with her, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Alison Roman, welcome back to This Is Taste. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
I'm really good. It's nice. I texted you yesterday. Would you like to come in and talk about Home Movies Season 2? And you're like, sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm leaving town, and I know you're leaving town. Yeah. And I was like, sure. I always like talking to you.
I appreciate it, and I really like the evolution of your show, and I've been following it, and I want to get a sense. You're basing it in your upstate home.
Yeah.
How's upstate life for you?
It's great. I mean, I'm splitting time, which I know you know a little bit about. I mean, I bought a house, I bought this piece of property in 2021.
Yeah.
As sort of like a pandemic reaction almost. And like, what am I doing like with my life? And what is that going to look like? And then, opened a store in the same building and sort of turned the upstairs into like more of a kitchen and figuring it out. But it took, 3 years-ish to do all that. And so it's all sort of now coming into fruition. But I'm, trying to balance where to spend my time.
Yeah.
I'm not quite ready to say I don't
no
live
more
in
New York
anymore. Yeah. Although I do feel like the older I get, the more it sort of pushes me out.
I mean, it pushed me out in a sense. And I think once you live upstate and have like a little more space, all those, like the cracks start showing in New York, right?
Yeah. It's the space, and it's also like the feeling of permanence.
Agreed.
And I think for me, having rented my whole life, you sort of don't invest that much into your home space because you're like, well, we're probably going to move eventually. Someone's controlling your rent. You don't have control over like when the heat goes on in some buildings, or if you can paint, or there's just changes that you aren't allowed to make or don't want to invest the money in. And feeling like you actually have something that you can spend a lot of your time, money, energy, like
trees.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm going to, I landscaped last year. And I planted things that aren't going to show up till this year.
Yeah.
And that's like an investment. And I really like that.
I mean, it's also like an investment in your time and building community. And I've found the same way moving full time out of New York. It's like when you're in New York renting, you're kind of always moving around, you're traveling. But now you've got this kitchen that's going to be appearing as a main character on your show.
Yeah.
It's so great.
And it's not even fully done yet. It's sort
Really?
of like, I would say it's like 80%. Yeah. But there's just, I'm very afraid to make permanent changes aesthetically in the house, like painting, tiling. I'm like, I feel scared, even though I know I want to, but there's things that are like on the list. But there's also like in old houses, as you know, like there's limitations. Like,
you don't
you don't have a stud here. You have to open the wall up if you want to put something in. And you're like,
shit, open the wall. You don't want to go
I don't want to open a wall.
No one wants to open walls. Let's talk about the aesthetic of the new season, and you've made a production change. I really like it.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. It's true. It really has evolved. It feels broadcast in a way.
Yeah.
It's not so internet-y.
Yeah.
And I love it. Let me ask you, I'd love to hear the transition to this new team. How did that go, and like what were you aiming for?
Yeah, I mean, I think after 3 years, Dan and David and I, we sort of were like, had run it. The version of Home Movies that we were making had sort of run its course. And I know that everybody's really busy with other projects. Like that wasn't anyone's full-time job. And so I think that it just sort of like came time to be like, I gotta do something else.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you want to do something else too. And I think that I became a little fatigued with like my own shtick and like I don't know. Also, like, I'm going to have to leave that apartment at some point, probably this year, because my landlord is raising the rent, and it like no longer justifies
Did he like
the
see you on
place.
TV and was like, all right,
No,
7B is going to be raised?
no, opposite. They like know that I film there, and I mean, I think no, they do it for everybody.
They do it for. I'm kind of joking.
No, they're awful.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. No, I'm not kidding.
Yeah, you're not going to be back in a year, so they are awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think it was just sort of, I took a couple months off to be like, do I want to keep doing this? And if I want to keep doing this, what do I want out of it? And like, what do I want to be different? And I didn't want to just recreate what I had already done with a different team, because I don't think you can. I think that was like its own thing. It's singular. It was made with the people who made it, and it was great.
And it was so internet-y.
It was really internet-y, which isn't my native tongue. That's like not where I felt most comfortable. But I think especially to start, it was like, well, if we're going to be on YouTube, we should like speak the language.
Yeah, right on. It was the right choice, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it had like, it channeled a little bit of the BA energy, but it had your own. And you were like definitely instinctually moving towards, a lot of fast cuts and a lot of like sound effects, and it really worked. But now I think what Emily Sundberg wrote in her letter yesterday, and you quote, this new show is subversive in the face of what's expected of internet content these days. Very smart. What do you mean by subversive?
I think that I realized that like I'm not going to win the YouTube game. That's not why I'm there. I'm not on YouTube to be a YouTube celebrity. I'm on YouTube because that's the only place I can put my content that houses long form video. Like I'm not there to compete with the people who are successful on YouTube as like quote unquote content creators in that way. And I just realized that like pretty early on, like I wasn't gonna beat them at their own game. And I didn't want to. That wasn't me. It wasn't my vibe. And I don't know. I think it was just time to also I'm 38, and when I started I was 35, and it was in the pandemic, and now we're not. And there's a lot of time that passes, and you sort of like ask yourself, like, how do you want to appear in the world? Like, what is the content you want to make? And, I know you were going to ask me about TV. And I think for me, having made a TV show, I was like, well, I can have the TV show and then I'd have the YouTube channel. And then once the TV show sort of went off the table because CNN sort of imploded.
Yeah, you wrote a really eloquent and heartfelt letter about it, and about your feelings about what happened with CNN.
Yeah, I could go into like logistical details, but they're not that interesting. It's like typical Hollywood bullshit. It wasn't personal. It wasn't just me.
Definitely
it was just
not.
like a whole slate of stuff that got
Stanley Tucci got canceled. My God, I mean, that's a big show.
Yeah. It was just a whole slate of lifestyle stuff, and so that was a real bummer, to put it lightly. But I think I realized, well, if that's the kind of stuff that I want to make, if I want to make something that feels more networky or more like prestige TV or more refined and like not as cheeky, not as internet-y, then I just have to make it. No one's going to ask me to make it. Yeah.
Let me ask you about TV. I'll get there right now.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about it last time, and you made the.
We can talk about it every time. I'm not to say it'll happen, but we can talk about it every time.
Well, I want to hear, because clearly they're going to swing back and do a lot of nonfiction on places like CNN. It's going to happen. And
I think it's already happening.
You're going to be there in the meetings if you've had the meetings. I know this, obviously, and like this new direction feels broadcast ready. It feels like you're like trying out, in a sense, for broadcast. I know the show that was canceled or didn't air was a travel show. I mean, what are your thoughts on TV right now? Is it still?
It was definitely a cooking show. It had a travel component, but it was definitely like, I would say, anchored in cooking, and I was still like in a kitchen cooking. So it's not that different. And we actually shot in the kitchen that I'm shooting in now, but it looks very different because it was pre-construction.
Oh, I see.
It's pretty funny. I'm like on a stainless steel table, like in an empty room, because I had knocked down a wall and didn't install.
Did you have the hearth behind you?
Well, that was always there. Yeah,
that's right.
I moved in.
The hearth's good.
It is great.
I feel that's like kind of the guest host. It's just
and that was sort of what I was hesitant about filming there, because I was like, oh God, are people going to think that I'm like goes upstate and like installs a wood burning hearth and like you need to use it to cook it? And it's like, no, that was there when I moved in.
There.
I'm obsessed with it. I love it, but I cook in it on my own time. I'll never cook in it.
Yeah.
For a video, because like that's just like not the vibe. No one's doing that.
No.
I think it goes back to like making the content that you aspire to, like dress for the job that you want. And whether or not it ever gets picked up in its current iteration, which is so new, by the way. Like the first episode that you see was the first episode we shot. And I thought about like burying it like 4 episodes in, but I was like, let's just get it out of the way. it's not like, I feel like for me, I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, it's not my strongest performance, but I'm nervous. I'm like working with this new team. I'm in shooting in a space that I haven't before. I'm sort of in real time asking myself, like, who am I right now? Like, how am I going to show up for this? And really, I'm just trying to be as like regular and authentic and like honest as possible and teach you how to cook. And it's interesting because everybody who's my friend that has seen it is like, wow, that's like actually more you than anyone.
Yeah,
any version I've seen.
You said it, and I agree because I know you off camera a bit as well, and it's like when you were doing the performance for the other one, it felt, it was performance, and that's
and
okay.
that's also heavy. We had brilliant editors who like were very good at like punching up moments and like making things more gaggy and more like zany and like
fun
and fun. Yeah, it was just a different vibe, and like not to say that I'm not that person or don't still enjoy that sort of style, but for me, I just was like, I'm tired of feeling like I have to be that way.
I love that, and I love that when you, in your introduction to this new series, you mentioned you're nervous. And you didn't bury it because I was like, you didn't bury it to see episode 4 or 5.
Yeah,
and that's why we like you. I mean, that's why I think everyone enjoys your content because it's like so honest. And I think your writing is the strongest part of your.
Thank you.
I really love your writing, and
thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's true. I was just speaking with someone about it recently, and honestly, I just want to read I just like to read you. Personally.
Well, good news. I'm writing another book. So you can read me in fall 2025 if I do everything on time.
I think you will because you did 3 in 6 years.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah. I took 3 years off between the second and the third. Yeah. But that, in book years, it just feels like forever. The world moves so quickly now. Content moves so quickly. Like people demand content, recipes, everything sort of right now, and like they ingest it and like move on. And so I like a slower burn. I like, pacing things out a little bit. I think that encourages people to like savor a bit more. And, books are truly a labor of love, as you would know, you make them as well. But it is, I've become a lot more thoughtful about my writing and a lot more thoughtful about how I want this book to feel and look and what goes inside of it. And, it can't just be churned out.
Definitely not. What are you doing for your new book? Like, generally speaking?
It's a cookbook. I'm just kidding. It's a savory book.
It's an actual cookbook, Alison?
Cookbook. I know. Can you imagine?
It's a savory cookbook. I like that. Okay, we don't need to spoil a good show. I don't want to spoil a good show. And
I also don't like talking about things too far in advance. It's like a year and a half out. It's like, we'll get there.
It's a cookbook. We'll leave it at that. I notice, and you've mentioned this, is your stove in the new kitchen is electric.
It's electric.
Which I have to ask you, like, was this a debate you had, gas versus electric?
No.
All?
No, because I didn't have gas in the building. So there's no gas in my building. I don't have, and to have a gas stove is always possible. You have like a lot of people upstate do this because a lot of the old buildings obviously don't have gas.
Yeah.
So you can install like a propane tank outside your home.
Yeah.
That like, you can pipe into your house to make gas.
That's exactly what I have.
Yeah. I didn't want that. There's not as much real estate outside. It's just like, I was like, you know what?
Yep.
I'm just going to roll with electric. I feel like it is actually the future. I feel like we all will be cooking on it a lot more. It didn't feel like a sacrifice. It didn't feel like I was compromising.
That's what I think, because we're used to the apartment rental electrics or the rent.
And those are awful.
Those coil ones.
No,
those are awful.
I have an AGA.
So let's talk gear. Let's go there.
Yeah.
What do you do in there? What's the setup?
The setup is an AGA stove.
AGA.
Right? AGA. Yeah. Is that not? Do you not say AGA? I don't know.
No. I have no idea. No. We're calling it AGA. I don't think it's an acronym.
If that's not it, they unfortunately need to rebrand.
Yeah.
And now it's AGA.
AGA.
Yeah, an AGA/AGA.
Yeah.
It is, I believe, British brand.
Okay.
But honestly, I went for aesthetics because I figured if I was going to buy a gas range, it was going to be an AGA/AGA. And so I like Googled to see if they had electric, and they did. And it wasn't just aesthetics, but I was like, oh, I know this company is reputable. I know that they make good products. I like cooking on them, like in the gas version. So I sort of had to assume that the electric would also be good. From then, I did do some online research. I Googled reviews, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hit that wire cutter.
Yeah. And I was I was between them and it was like 2 other European brands, and it kind of came down to price because I was able to find my stove for cheaper through like a secondhand retailer in North Carolina.
Gently used, or was it brand new?
It was they said gently used, but then I spoke to them and like, we actually haven't used it. It's just not in a packet. Like we took it out of the package, basically.
It's like never buy a new car. It's like, why? It's why you do that. Like you just don't want to pay that sticker price.
Yeah, it was pretty great. And I'm super happy with it. It has 3 ovens.
Yeah.
And I got the 48 inch range, which is 5 burners.
Yeah.
2 of them right now are the only issue I've had with this thing is that I accidentally left the broiler on the left-hand side of my oven for like 3 hours.
Okay, and it burned out a little bit.
And the 2 flat tops on top kind of burnt out a little.
Yeah, that's
but
okay.
I have to get a technician to come. That's the bummer about upstate is that like anytime you need anything fixed that you're like, fuck, I've got to like call the guy.
The guy isn't,
and he's not coming for 8 weeks.
I know, it's tough. But still, like when you're doing like when you're doing like high temperature roasting, is it to your liking?
The oven is superlative.
Yeah. Electric, I mean, yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It also, like, for baking, it's tough because I realize most people in the United States are not cooking on convection. Most people in Europe are. That's, like, their default.
Yeah.
They call it fan.
Yeah.
It's with a fan or without a fan. But most default is fan cooking, which is why some recipes, especially oven recipes of mine, need clarification or translating because they assume fan, which increases your temperature like 25 to 50 degrees. And, whatever.
Dude, baking recipes.
Yeah, the baking...
Savory cookbook.
Don't get me started. That's why I'm doing a savory cookbook.
Stovetop.
Yes.
Yeah.
But convection baking is...
Agree. That's why we love the air fryer.
Nothing compares.
I know. All right, I want to ask you about restaurant reviews, anonymous restaurant reviews. Because you mentioned you would love to do
I would love to do that. I just can't. You know, Delia Kai's newsletter.
I know.
I'm dying to write for her, but I feel like my writing style is, for better or for worse, just too recognizable.
Yeah,
I feel like people in a second, unless I wrote about something that was so left field.
Did you write the menswear one?
No, yeah, I wrote the menswear.
It's the best one.
No, I think I'm too much of a tell.
But anonymous restaurant. Okay, what about like going the other way? What about just blind restaurant reviews that you write?
No.
Too mean.
It's not too mean. It's just that I'm very honest. And I also realize, as somebody whose work is publicly critiqued constantly, like I can appreciate a valid criticism, but I think that sometimes, I don't know. I just feel like coming from me, people, it might get taken out of context.
It's not a rail you want to even go near.
It's simply not. No.
And it's a very good decision. I think public criticism is, even punching up, like even if you're like shit bagging on Teresi, which obviously you're not.
You think you're punching up, but some people don't think you are.
It's not.
So
There's like people working there who
if you think you are, you're probably not. Just don't say anything.
Good advice. We will get to some restaurant picks later, but
But what a dream. I mean, I say that also in jest because I do miss the honesty of real restaurant reviews. I feel like everybody now is too gentle and they're too democratic and they're too positive. And like even the positive restaurant reviews, like a B- is like, yeah, there were some shortcomings, but overall, like what a cool, they're trying to do something and maybe you could go there and you might da-da-da. I'm like, that's so soft.
Yeah, and well, you want to like land it with like a soft landing for everybody.
But also like opinions are opinions and we should be able to have them. And if somebody says, I had a bad experience, here's why, and they can back it up, there's no reason why that should be taken.
Dude, fire up fucking Yelp. Just go there.
Yeah.
Just Yelp it,
I have friends that do that.
Yeah.
I have a friend who writes Yelp reviews.
Like, might still be that guy myself.
Yeah, it's very funny. But he will leave like exclusively positive reviews, which I find very
That's
funny.
very cute. I like that. The New York Anonymous Restaurant Review or something. There's got to be like a publication.
I could recruit like 6 people right now, and it would that sort of collection of restaurant reviews would be
great.
So good.
I know, and it would actually make money. It'd be like actually a good venture.
Well, let me ask you something. Do you think that that people would write for something anonymously consistently? Because I think most people just want to be famous. If
you paid their bill and paid them a little for the copy, they would.
But you don't think if they got any glory that they would do it?
I mean, Delia's getting that.
She is, but I've had this conversation with other people. And I want to have it with her. Like I think, especially if something does really well, like if it goes wild, who wrote, like somebody who wrote it is going to want to be like, fuck.
I agree that the natural instinct is you want bylines because you want to leverage that for more work because we're
Correct.
all starving to like get our
Dark.
word out there. But I do think if you're paying and it's, coming from people who maybe are gainfully employed or comfortable economically or also just maybe don't want the attention. I think there are enough people who work in the industry who would relish in anonymous reviews. But I think you have to compensate any writers. So if you give them like $500 a review, pays for the meal.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a real model. I think 60, 70, 100 a year for like 52 reviews.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. But also I think, so now I've written about this a little bit, but recommendation culture where places like the Eater List and Infatuation, et cetera, thrive because people just type in like date night West Village and they just want to be prescribed a list of things. Very few people are looking for actual thoughtful criticism when it comes to restaurants or anything else, if I'm honest.
Anything else, you are being honest. We struggle every day when we write longer than 25 words.
Yes.
On Taste, we still do that, FYI.
Yeah, well, critique is not...
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be inherently negative.
Absolutely not.
But in the world of the internet where like negativity is trolling and trolling is negativity, those are not critiques and that is not thoughtful criticism.
I think Wells, I think Addison, I think Helen Rosner are all putting out good stuff. So I think there's still an appetite for...
I mostly agree.
Yeah, mostly agree. It's good. Scallops. Okay, I want to go there. I know, right?
Whoa, he wants to go. He's going there.
I was talking with my wife last night about the guy who ate 3 pounds of scallops for 30 days. Do you know about this guy?
No, why did he do that?
He ate 3 pounds of scallops for 30 days and lost like 45
Wait, sorry.
pounds.
He ate 3 pounds of scallops every day for 30 days?
30 days.
33 pounds a day?
Yes.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, it's an expensive journey.
Yeah,
right?
that's like, they're like $30 a pound.
$30 a pound, so it's like $100 a day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is he eating anything with them?
My understanding of the meme or the internet, whatever, was he was eating only scallops.
But like raw, pan-seared?
I think he was eating them in both forms, to be honest.
Wow, why did he do this?
Because he wanted to lose 43 pounds.
But why the scallops?
Because of the protein level.
They have more protein than a chicken breast.
They have way more protein than chicken breast. They have like an abnormal amount of protein.
You know why? That's why they
ounce.
leak that little white liquid every time.
It's so great when you talk about the leaky liquid. I mean, it's
it's true though.
Okay, so we were talking last night. Like, do you like scallops?
I love them.
Okay, this is the question because Tamara was like, no one likes scallops, and I was like, I love it. Let's go there. What do you think?
I think everybody loves scallops. And if they don't, they just don't know. That's not true. I don't think everybody loves scallops. I love scallops. I think they're delicious. I think like a seared scallop in a pan that gets like perfectly brown and probably something to do with the high protein content. Like the fond is unparalleled. It's like lightly sweet. It's like deeply caramelized. It has the most unique flavor. I remember working in a restaurant where we had to sear scallops to order. I forget what the set was or what they were being served with. But I do remember that afterwards, the fond that would then reduce further and like caramelize in the skillet, I would scrape up with a fish spatula and eat.
Absolutely.
Like
We've all
delicious
done that.
Candy. We've all done that. Everybody's doing that.
We've all done that with fish fond because I think fish fond is really interesting because
it's
specifically
scallops.
Yeah, scallop fond is what you're feeling more because of the sweetness. It's got that extra, and it's just
they're
really
expensive. They're niche. I get it. I have a tough time writing recipes for them because they also, for whatever reason, never feel like a meal. Like, I can't imagine, like, making scallops for dinner.
It's tough. You have to do, like, 12 per person.
I will say I have a very good recipe for scallops that I put in Dining In, and I don't think I've written... That's not true. There's a scallop recipe in Nothing Fancy as well.
Yeah.
But the Dining In, both of them sort of use... In Dining In, it's, like, corn and spices that you, like, deglaze the skillet with, so you get to eat all the scallop fond. And in Nothing Fancy, it's, like... white beans that you serve with like citrus and tomatillo.
So you're deglazing for the first one with the corn.
Crushed corn, yeah. You like toast the spices.
That's great. Because I think with scallops too, when you cook it and you sear it.
Corn also not an ingredient I use a ton of. Corn and scallops together though, delicious.
Frozen corn though.
Feels very like a little late 90s though.
Yeah,
now.
We're all back. I mean,
I know.
Look outside, walk down the street. It's 90s. Come on, let's go.
I saw two girls yesterday, high schoolers. I was like, wow, I had that outfit. I
know.
That. How is this back? But I'm also that is admittedly my inspiration for new home movies. I'm like, let's just take it back. We're going 90s.
I see you. I was on the subway this morning and I saw a guy. He looked like he was like 94 backpacker going to prep school. He looked like those like New York Mag articles from the 90s, like the prep school, killer or whatever. But these like the
like guy with like the Carrie Elwes bangs or whatever, Val Kilmer vibe.
Val, definitely giving Val.
I love it. And I think with the scallops, I think we're definitely due to have a renaissance. And I was going to ask you, the color of scallops when you see them at home, it can get like brown and weird, right? Like, do you
Well,
know?
they should be brown.
Well,
when you
like in
sear
a
them.
way that like almost like the fond shoots up into the scallop and like kind of like paints it with black. Is that just me?
Whoa, what? We
I know.
gotta
You're
cook some
like,
scallops together.
You're like,
my friend.
we gotta like get the scallop because
We gotta go to scallop tutorial.
I feel like maybe there's not enough butter in my pan. I'm just like searing it too hard.
You should sear in neutral oil and finish with butter.
That's why I'm fucking it up.
Yeah,
I'm
don't ever
only-
sear in butter. Anything. That
Why?
shit'll burn
That's what I'm doing.
immediately. Don't sear any protein in just butter ever.
Yeah,
Like sear a thin layer of neutral oil.
yeah.
Sear them on one side really, really, really well.
Yeah,
Flip them. Knob of butter. Baste. Kill the heat.
Baste.
You're done.
and then you're done.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't focus too much on getting them super brown on both sides because by the time you do that, especially if they're small, they shrink a lot.
Overcook them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great advice about not putting butter in the pan.
Yeah.
with
If you learn
proteins.
anything from me today or ever, let it be that.
Yeah. Let's shout out some people you like in food writing. I feel like you have a great sense of who's doing cool stuff, and I wanted to ask you, people who quote unquote write about food doesn't have to be food writers. That is like the remit in this for this question.
Yeah. I admittedly don't read a ton of food
Yeah.
stuff, but I do find that the people who I think write about it most interestingly are people that are not in food media. There's some exceptions. I think Helen Rosner really does an excellent job of restaurant reviews, and her writing is very evocative. And she's like, to me, a capital W writer that I think consistently puts out great work. And I love. I think he's going to probably continue down this path, but I do. I both like, envy, and despise Jason Stewart's ability to write about restaurants as freely as he does.
Yeah.
He is the anonymous restaurant reviewer that I wish I could be, but he's not anonymous.
He's not anonymous. We've worked on 3 stories at Taste, and then he promptly quit and did his own Substack.
Yeah, that's what
Thank
happened.
you, Jason.
Yeah.
No. To Jason's credit, he gave me a very polite heads up that he was going to go solo. And I'm like, dude, yeah.
Yeah, have you heard of Substack, Matt?
Yeah, right, exactly. We should all,
We're going to talk about that offline.
I heard Sub is good. I mean, I do think,
Not his, just in general.
no, I think it's a good business model. They're doing a great job there, and I think the network is nice too. Recommendation engines, it is a social network more than it is a platform for publishing words.
It is now, yeah.
And that's great for when you're at the top of the game for making that reoccurring revenue just hit, it's
I actually think they're putting more into the people just signing up to give them a hit when they start.
Yeah.
But I don't notice a ton of movement on my recommendations. I get most of my incoming from my own channels.
All right.
Yeah, just for what it's worth, anecdotally. But
No, it's good advice. But I mean, Jason's great. Any other writers you have in mind that you want to shout?
I think Claire DeBoer's recipes are so lovely. And
Yeah.
she, to me, is very aspirational restaurant mom, upstate,
Wow.
beautiful. Just I'm like, oh, that sounds great. She's also a lovely person.
She's humble.
I really
She's great.
like her energy. She's very
too.
sweet and kind. Yeah. Who else? I like Christina Che's writing a lot. I think
Yeah.
that she does a great job. She does a lot of body positivity stuff too that isn't for
Performative.
yeah, that isn't performative
Yeah.
and isn't any sort of prescriptive,
Agenda-driven, yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of honest conversations, and she talks to a lot of people in that space that I think she has a good judge of character of where they're coming from. And I don't know, I've found some people through her that I've enjoyed about discussing that, because I do think a lot about body positivity, eating, diet, culture as it relates to me, a woman, a food writer, or whatever you want to call me, in the age of Ozempic, in the age of diet culture, in the age of some of the most popular people creating content are the thinnest. And I'm like, I just don't know who's eating and who's not. And I don't know what's real and what's not. And I'm really uncomfortable with the whole thing.
Well said, Alison. I think it's important to note too that, Christina, folks like this, they need to be supported to continue writing.
Yeah.
Just to re-up the Substack thing. And
Yeah.
I think she's on Substack.
Yeah, they all are.
And I wanted,
Almost everyone is, I think, now.
That's so great. I just wanted to ask you this, and those are all great examples. Support your writers, guys. Support them.
It means a lot. I think
really
that
does.
when I first went out on my own, I did not expect. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was going to be able to survive financially just by getting sort of the support from people who enjoyed the content that I do.
Yeah.
And I think for me and for most people, it's not just supporting like the Substack or their writing, you're supporting them as a person who makes things. And so whether it's you like their books or their podcast or their YouTube channel or their whatever, if you're like, you know what, I want to support the work that they do at large and like this helps contribute to that, I see it as like an ecosystem where I'm able to make home movies because I have a strong Substack following, and I'm able to do X because I have Y, and like I'm able to do Substack because I have great book deal. Like, you know what I mean? It all kind of filters into each other. And I think that each writer is more than their Substack and like deserves the sort of like vote of confidence of being like, sure, I'll give you like $5 a month.
Even if it's like 20 subscribers, that's such a vote of confidence.
But it is tough, I will say. And I think most people, most writers, most anyone is not comfortable with the idea that they're asking people for money to support them. It's a very awkward position we've put our creators, quote unquote, in these days because, you know, I was talking about it with somebody the other day and I said, I think it was Emily actually, and I was like, I don't think that this many people would have a Substack if there were more jobs. There simply aren't
That's
jobs.
what I was going to just say. Like even looking at like traditional publishing, it's like $20 to $25 an issue of like Cherry Bomb and Savor and two great publications. Like you have to pay to get great content these days.
Yeah.
Very few places are free. So it does like funnel down into Substack. You got to pay for this stuff.
Right. But also if you're, you know, a young person looking to get into food writing or wants to work in a magazine, where are you going to work?
Right.
When I started out, there were, I want to say like 8 food magazines you could work for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now there's maybe 1. Maybe 2. And like one of them's only online. And like, you know what I mean?
I don't know. 1.5, 1 3/4.
Yeah,
maybe.
but it's just the options aren't there. And you used to be able to go from magazine to magazine or publication to publication and learn skills from different editors and learn the different nuts and bolts from people around you, copy editors, creative directors. It was like a learning experience.
It's so important for mentorship. Do you think TikTok kind of, did we like buy into it a little bit much on the food side?
I didn't buy into shit.
I know you didn't, and I'm asking you exactly that question.
Yeah, I mean,
we
I
being
do.
the general public. You know?
I do. And to your question earlier, which I didn't actually answer when you said, what did I mean by the home movies being more subversive? It's that I know it's successful and I know it works. And I'm not doing that necessarily. You know, like I am actively choosing to not. It isn't a misstep. I'm not like missing the mark. It's me choosing to not engage with or try to make content that doesn't speak to me. It's not the kind of content I want to consume, and it's not the kind of content that comes naturally to me. I think that things change, trends come and go, and like I'm just trying to make something that lasts and that's helpful for people. And like to choose that while you can see what does well and what doesn't, I think I'm like, it's either stupid or subversive.
It is subversive. I mean, putting even jazz as a soundtrack is subversive in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's delightful.
Maybe in like 7 years, people will be like, wow, that was really groundbreaking.
I mean, you're joking, but you're not. You're so true. I mean, like, look at what you did 5 years ago with your platform, right when the pandemic was. I mean, like, you are definitely not going to be the only one doing like more traditional, looking back at like Giada, looking back at some of the Stand and Stir and Food Network, which I think you're channeling a little bit more of with this. Yeah,
well, you're like, why is that good? Why did I mean, that's how I learned how to cook. What is good about it? What do I want to change about it? How do I inject more of my personality into it? While at the core, retaining like the usefulness.
Exactly.
And like, I think for me, being useful is very important and it drives a lot of what I do. And like, the biggest compliments I receive are people being like, you changed my life because you taught me how to cook.
It's such a great compliment when you get that. And I think with this show, it is service-oriented versus it being just entertainment, which I think is what TikTok, no one's cooking from TikTok. I'm sorry.
No, I think, you know, might be some young people that do. I've heard that there's like some quote-unquote content creators.
I've heard and not seen.
I've heard
asked
but not
many
seen.
people.
Yeah, but I think that it is, I'm just wondering where all the food goes. I have a real bee in my bonnet. I'm like, the food waste has got to be astronomical. We must be reaching new highs. If you're like, I'm going to do a YouTube channel, like that's effectively what you're competing with. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, that's not really what I'm competing with.
Yeah.
So let's just do what I want to do. And if it works, great. And if not, I'll start a 5th podcast or something.
Yeah, we're going to get to your podcast.
I'm just kidding.
A 5th podcast. What's the next recipe? I think we're going to run this after on home movies.
Next recipe on home movies is anchovy butter chicken.
Nice.
Yeah, with like a little mustardy salad. I'm doing more like complete meals.
Pasta limone before with broccoli. We're going to get to that. Yeah. And peas together.
Yeah, which is so good. It's like, I was like,
so
you know
good.
what? This is like a real entry level and I needed that. I was like, this is entry level spiritually and logistically.
But then you had like the made for TV pasta shape. I mean, the pasta shape was ill.
I know, it's fun.
It's so
But
great.
that's like, it's such a
Explain
small...
the pasta shape.
Well, it's like a very, very, if you like, imagine a fusilli, but it's thinner and tighter.
Yeah.
And it's very long.
It's so long.
It's like I've seen them made before where you basically take like a quarter inch, maybe like an eighth or a quarter of an inch of a strip of pasta, and you wrap it around a very, very thin stick.
Yeah.
You let it dry and you remove the stick. So imagine that. So it's like a very tight but also like thick ribbon of pasta corkscrewed around each other for infinity. And it kind of like breaks off into some smaller pieces. Some pieces stay really long and springy. But that pasta specifically is like so thick and starchy that it just makes the most sexy little pasta sauce.
It was made for TV. I love that. And so anchovy chicken with butter. What's the side? What's the complete meal?
It's like jammy onions on the side. There's chicken fat croutons. And then on the side, there's like I'm not calling it a vinaigrette because there's no oil in it. It's more like a dressing of like whole grain mustard, cherry vinegar. I think there's
for the bread salad, for like the croutons?
No, for the salad on the side.
Salad.
Yeah, because I'm sort of notoriously like, I don't like vinaigrettes, but you do need to season your leaves and your lettuce. And so escarole goes in there, and it's like an argument for escarole.
You're like a lemon juice, aren't you? You're not vinaigrette.
I am, but I am also sherry vinegar.
Oh.
Those are like the two acids I favor the most.
Yeah, but you're more acid than not. For your
yeah,
salad.
but also especially if you're eating a chicken that's like bathed in olive oil and anchovy butter and all this stuff, then like you do need like a bracingly acidic moment to eat alongside that. I don't necessarily think that every bite should have everything, which is why I don't like dress the onions in vinegar. It's like more on the side so you can have like a respite here and there. But the episode starts with making anchovy butter as like the thing that you should make.
Yeah.
And I have an episode about like a baked pasta, and it starts with like, this is a tomato sauce that you should make. And then here's how to use it.
And so that's like a compound butter you can keep in the freezer.
Yeah, it's perfect. I eat it all the time with so many things. And we talk about anchovies, what brands I like, do a little taste test.
Are you team Ortiz or are you doing Fish Wife? What are you doing?
I love Ortiz.
Yeah,
I think they're fantastic. I think they're some of the best anchovies money can buy. Rizzoli, also a great brand that I've recently discovered.
Nice.
By having a store where I can buy any kind of brand I want. And then Cento is like, I think the gold standard for basic classic.
For food service, that's the one that you see mostly. Yeah.
But I do try to like guide people towards like a cooking anchovy, a snacking anchovy, and like the two aren't necessarily the same. I would snack on a cooking anchovy, but I wouldn't necessarily cook with a snacking anchovy.
Got it.
They're too nice and expensive.
First Bloom, your store near your home, how is it going? I mean, do you like the Alison Roman fam show up?
Yeah.
Hang out? I mean, it's really fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I mean, I would say like people definitely make the trek because it's like 3 hours from the city.
Yeah.
But it also is there to service the people who live in the area, who live in the community. And I think it's doing its job in that. Like we have so many regular customers. Like it's a really great way to get to know the people that live around you.
So great. Yeah.
And the weekends are definitely busier with people that like are staying nearby in Airbnbs or up for the weekend or hiking or doing whatever. But it's fun. People sometimes, I'm not always there, but when I am and people see me, they're like, oh, I didn't think you'd be here. I'm like, well, I am here.
Yeah, I'm here. And hi, you should.
I would be there all the time if I could. I love it. It's like the lowest ROI of anything I do, where I'm like, I'm making 12 biscuits today.
Yeah.
Like that's how I'm spending my time. You
really,
know, like I should be writing a newsletter.
It's great to not think about ROI like all the time.
It really is. And I think that as I grow personally and professionally, like it becomes increasingly important to have the things that like don't matter. Like metrics don't matter. Like it's not for Instagram. It's not for money. It's for like pure enjoyment and like soul satisfaction. And I'm so grateful that I have that.
That's nice. What about a restaurant up there?
Not for me.
Not for you.
Not for me. We do some
prepared,
we're gonna start doing some prepared stuff in the store. And then when it gets nicer out, we're gonna have tables outside and do like you can sit and have like your coffee or tea and like a little sandwich or something. But
fun.
A restaurant is not for me.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be there all the time.
You got to be there. I couldn't do it half.
It's disrespectful to the restaurant industry. I'm with you.
I agree.
I respect your take. The podcast is returning.
Yeah, it returned today, actually.
Oh, today it dropped in the feed? Cool.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about it. You launched it last year? In December?
Yeah, in September.
September. So let me ask you about what's the is it advice driven stuff?
Yeah. So basically, I realized after I went on like a pretty massive book tour last year, I was like in Australia, I was in Canada, I was in across the states, and every event sort of turns into this massive Q&A, which is great, but like I was like, oh, that's the most fun part. And that's why I like going on tour. Like, I love answering questions. I love talking to people.
Yeah.
And it just also by the nature of like communicating with others, like feels looser. It feels like you're not performing, like you're just like having a conversation like we are now. I love this. I wish I could do stuff like this all the time. But yeah, so and also I would do these like series on Instagram of like cooking emergencies, cooking Q&A.
Right. I mean, those are fun.
And I thought, okay, well, it would really be great if I had a place for all this stuff that felt a little bit more permanent. And so decided that I was going to do a podcast.
And who's on it?
Everyone's on it.
Let's talk. Let's get some guests in there.
Yeah, it's a different person each time, which is interesting because you don't get into a rhythm with a co-host, as you know, like one-on-one. You're like, you know me because we've done this before, but sometimes you're like, oh, like when the caller calls in and you're like, oh, they're nervous or the vibe is, you know, more high or more low or whatever. But, you know, most of the people, like the guests that I've had, like the co-hosts are all like either comedians or podcasters, like
it's cool.
Very comfortable on the mic. And it's been great. It's been like very fun. And people will write back and say like, I took your advice and here's what happened.
Oh, sick. So people are actually like absorbing it a little bit more than
I think it's really helpful actually. And I always learn something from the other, person I'm hosting with, like their advice is great. And I find it interesting that when someone asks you a question or asks you for advice, you really start to think about things differently because it's not your own life. You're like, well, how would I approach this?
You enter new realities, of course. Like if it's like someone with a kid or someone like, it's older.
And then when that thing happens to you or a friend, you're like, oh, I am going to think about this a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Like it is very like expansive.
I'm into it. I'm going to link to the show notes. Definitely hit the subscribe if you haven't listened to Alison. Is it every week? Once a week?
Bi-weekly. We changed everything to bi-weekly.
Yeah.
So each week there will be either a home movies or a podcast.
I mean, duh.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't do both in 1 week.
Ugh.
It's just too much content.
On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire Fast and Furious taste check. Alison, are you ready?
I'm ready.
The best fruit.
Raspberry.
I want to follow.
I ate raspberries yesterday, and I was like, "Wow, these are good."
I'm not judging you at all. I think raspberries are incredible.
Well, lemon is the best fruit, but lemon is an ingredient.
Yeah,
I don't eat lemon. So let me ask you a question with a question for eating or for cooking.
No, it's definitely an open-ended question. It doesn't. I mean, I can't even specify.
Well, don't hold me to it. I changed my mind.
I love raspberries. The worst vegetable.
Worst vegetable?
Yeah.
Sunchokes.
Yeah.
No question.
Gassy.
No contest.
The best dessert.
Mint chip ice cream.
Yeah. Is there a brand or are you making it?
No, I'm never making it. Homemade mint chip ice cream is trash.
Trash.
Thrifty's, Baskin Robbins.
Yeah.
The classics. There's nothing like it.
Are you into the Shamrock Shake? Do you get one a year?
Never had one.
Oh my gosh.
Is there chocolate in it or is it just mint?
Dude, just mint. It's like
I think I need the chocolate.
Okay.
If I'm honest.
You can also just...
I'm not a chocolate person, but I do appreciate the chocolate to offset the mint.
You go 50-50 is what you go.
Oh, okay.
50-50.
Yeah, I would do that.
Next March, hit it. All right. Your favorite New York City restaurant right now?
I went to Demo and I really loved it.
I don't know that one. Where is it?
West Village.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Favorite American fast food chain?
Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Jack in the Box or Shake Shack.
Super good answers.
Or In-N-Out.
I love... Damn.
But I don't eat fast food that often, so when I do, but I will say like deliciousness scale, it's got to be Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Or the tacos from Jack in the Box.
I think Taco Bell is doing with the Crunchwrap. They're doing like that young chef collab.
Are they?
Thing.
Oh, that makes me like them less. No more collab. Stop collab.
Yeah. I think it's cool. I mean,
I know. I can't. Just give me a bean and cheese burrito. It's delicious.
It's a pretty like that's
flawless.
That's the one I always get. Couple more. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
Mexico City.
Yeah.
Probably.
Great one. Cuisine you would like to learn more about?
Palestinian food.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Last one, your favorite sandwich?
Tuna on rye with a lot of iceberg lettuce.
Tuna, how much mayonnaise do you put in?
Very little. It's like
it's a very
mostly
light...
celery, red onion, dill, so much dill, lemon, salt, pepper, small amount of mayo, thin rye bread toasted, and like a fat slab of iceberg lettuce. Either like the leaves sheeted and folded or like a thick piece of it.
The crunch is you can't.
A lot of texture.
Yeah. Dill is so important.
It's the most important. People that don't like dill, it's not a personality. You know what I mean? I don't like a lot of things. I don't make it my whole personality.
Yeah, no, it's a weird thing. Alison Roman, this has been so great. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Thank you so much for having us. Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. Who's us?
I don't know who's us. It's a spiritual you. This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbar. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.